Hello everybody, my name is Star Raptor. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm really excited to bring you guys my spoiler-free review for Star Wars Aftermath Empire's End. This is the final chapter in Chuck Wendig's Aftermath Trilogy, and I want to thank the people over at Penguin Random House for sending me a review copy. So what did I think of Star Wars Aftermath Empire's End? I thought it was a great way to end the Aftermath Trilogy. So what is going on in Empire's End? Well, as the name suggests, this is all about how the Empire comes to an end. So the Empire just doesn't magically go away when the Death Star is destroyed. It doesn't magically go away when the Emperor and Darth Vader are killed. No, it takes a long time, a gradual time, and the remnants of the Empire, they get together at Jakku and they have this final battle against the New Republic. And this is what the story is all about. This book is all about that Battle of Jakku. So, returning the cast members from Life Debt, we have Tem and Wexley, we have Nora Wexley, we have their droid Mr. Bones, we have John Burrell, we have Josh, and we have Sinjir. On the Empire side, we have Ray Sloan, and we have Gallius Rax, who is that mysterious leader that is basically banding together all the remnants of the Empire. But we also have those legacy cast members. We have Chewbacca, Han, we have Leia, we have Admiral Akbar, we have Wedge, we have Mon Mothma. So we have a nice rich cast of characters, and of course in any great Star Wars novel we have the Hutts, we have bounty hunters, we have pirates, and of course space battles. So I'm going to just dive right into my positives of this novel. So first off, I think that the character development in this novel is great. A lot of the characters are split up right from the get-go. You got a lot of these characters that are separated. It actually helps focus more on these characters, and we finally see from the beginning of Aftermath all the way through Empire's End, a lot of these characters actually drastically change. Their outlooks really change, and the way that the novel leaves off, it really has a nice, tied bow to their characters, and it just was really resonated with me how well that Chuck Wendig wrote these new characters that I ended up caring about at the end. Another thing I really enjoyed about this novel was the interludes. Now these interludes, a lot of them are those one-shots, but they've actually paid off in this one. A lot of these interludes are carried from the very first Aftermath, and they just keep going along through Life Debt, and then finally in this novel to Empire's End. We see that the galaxy is changing, and that's what the point of these interludes was to really just get a bigger grasp on what is going in the galaxy. Now, the Empire's collapsing, there's a lot of other things going on, pirates stepping up into the void. You got people sticking up for themselves. You got some dark things going on in the corners of the galaxy, as well as some bright things with the light side. So very interesting stuff going on around the galaxy. Another thing I really enjoyed was the Battle of Jakku. I think Chuck Wendig wrote that brilliantly. I think having those different perspectives, you have a perspective from a commander on the New Republic's fleet, then you have somebody that's dogfighting and a fighter, then you have the people on the ground. It was really reminiscent of Rogue One in a lot of ways, with the way they cut between the different perspectives and characters, seeing the same thing happen maybe in space, then going back seeing it from somebody's perspective on the ground was just something really cool. And they definitely took a lot of time with making sure that we got that overall feeling of what was going on Jakku. But this novel wasn't just about battles. There is a heavy political undertone that was very similar, in fact, to House of Cards, if you guys ever watched that. There was a lot of stuff with Mon Mothma. Mon Mothma has the biggest part of any of the known characters in Star Wars. Basically, she is struggling, trying to get her way with the Senate, and she has this opponent, and they're butting heads, and it actually reminds me a lot of what happens in Bloodline with Leia. So very nice, interesting, intriguing way of looking at the politics in a brand new republic. And going back to Chuck Wendig's writing, I really enjoyed how there's a couple sequences in this novel where it's basically like two characters and it jumps back between their perspectives, and it adds a lot of suspense because they're both, it's kind of like Mission Impossible in a way in this one sequence, and it just does a great job of just reeling you in and, keeping you to flip those pages. I tell you, it's really good. And now that I'm talking about the writing, I am going to switch over to my negatives of the novel. Something that I've always had a little bit trouble with Chuck Wendig was his third-person writing. Sometimes I'll be reading in one chapter, and basically what happens, I'll be in perspective of one character, then all of a sudden it suddenly changes to another character, and I'm kind of jarred out of reading it because I'm thinking it's the other character they're talking about, but then it's the next one. So it's kind of something that happens every once in a while. It's not too big of a deal, but something I just definitely want to point out to you guys. Another thing I didn't really like about the novel was that some events seem a little bit too convenient. It's just like, okay, that person just randomly shows up there, or this thing happens where they get saved. Now, I know it's Star Wars, a lot of stuff like that happens throughout the saga. I guess you could just chalk it up to the Force or something like that, like the Force moves through everyone and it moves events forward. And finally, one thing that held this novel back from absolute greatness would be that the middle portion I felt was a little bit slow. I think there's some things about this novel. The novel was actually the longest of the 3 books, and I feel like there could have been some fat trimmed per se from this novel to make it a little bit more shorter but more concise and to the point, because I felt like when we got to those last 70 pages of the novel, that's when I was most invested in the story. The beginning part was pretty good, but the middle part, yeah, definitely was dragging its feet a little bit. So I'm going to give Star Wars Aftermath Empire's End a score of an 8 out of 10. I actually think that Life Debt was a little better than this one, but I still really enjoyed this novel. I think they tied it off perfectly with the way it concluded. This is a great story, and I would recommend it for anybody that wants to know what happens to the state of the galaxy after Return of the Jedi. I mean, you see how the Empire is reacting to the Death Star being destroyed, about how the Emperor and Vader are now dead. It does a great job of seeing what the rebellion does to turn into the New Republic. But I will preface this saying, don't go into this trilogy expecting to have all your questions from The Force Awakens answered. There is a lot of questions still left in the air at the end of this trilogy, which is actually a good thing because they shouldn't be giving us all the answers. I feel like all the biggest questions are going to be answered in Episode 8 and Episode 9. So that is going to do it for my review of Star Wars Aftermath Empire's End. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you guys aren't already subscribed to my channel, please consider doing so. I have a lot of Star Wars content on my channel, including this weekly Star Wars show called This Week in Star Wars Canon, where I talk about the TV series like Rebels, I talk about all the Marvel comics, and the video games, etc. So please be sure to subscribe to my channel. I'm also on social media, on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at StarRaptor, so if you want to talk to me outside of YouTube, feel free to follow me on there. I want to thank you guys for watching, and may the Force be with you always. So, did you like the video? Then make sure you rate it a thumbs up, and if you did that, go over there, hit that Star Raptor head to subscribe to my channel. Doing so will keep you up to speed on all of my latest content. Speaking of which, you can see a couple of my recent uploads down below. I'm also on social media, so what are you waiting for? Let's start nerding out.